tell him, Masa? JB Buno here with you live in the WFLA Stream Center. Again, waiting for Governor Ron DeSantis for a press briefing here in Tallahassee. You can see the title slide there next to the podium. It reads, Facts versus Smears. Capitol Bureau correspondent Mike Vasalinda tells us that this is a direct response to the 60 Minutes report that aired this past Sunday, pointing out the mismanagement of the vaccine distribution efforts here in the state of Florida, highlighting DeSantis' efforts here in various sections of the state. Again, expected to hear a response here from DeSantis momentarily. That's next on WFLA Now. Here he comes.
Well, good afternoon. We're going to have some comments here about the vaccines, and then I probably hope to see some of you at the mansion later today. We've got a really cool announcement that we're going to be able to do. Florida's vaccinated about 3.5 million of our seniors, about 75% of the senior population. We've done it in ways that have been very innovative and quite frankly, very successful. And I think because of that, just knowing the landscape we live in now, we've become the target of malicious smears, which have fallen apart over the last few days, but I think are even more false than even what most people have even believed already. And I started thinking about when we did start doing retail pharmacies, and Jared will tell you, we were supposed to have all the retail pharmacies open on day one. The federal government delayed their program. We wanted to figure out ways to do it. He had talked to Walmart as his first choice. They weren't quite ready. Publix eventually became ready, and so he arranged for that, and we did it. on a trial basis. And I remember going to the Publix when we first started it and just talking with seniors. And it occurred to me after talking with them, some of these seniors had not gone anywhere but Publix for the previous 9 months. They weren't going out to dinner. They weren't spending time with family. And so when you were there talking to them, a lot of them were very emotional. A lot of them had tears in their eyes because this is what they had been waiting for. And being able to get it at the one place that they had been going throughout the whole time was really, really important for them. And so, it was very, very successful. And of course, we were able to expand it accordingly. But when you're talking about this ridiculous smear narrative, it's important to break down just how false, how thoroughly dishonest it is, because this is bad for our country to have big corporate media smearing for profit just because I'm in the other party than them and using their partisanship to craft narratives regardless of the facts. So the big lie, of course, which has been debunked by 100% of the people that have any type of knowledge on this, is that there was some type of conspiracy between Publix, which is our probably most respected company in the state, and me about some type of vaccine distribution. That's been debunked. That was wrong. And it's very telling, when I was asked at that press conference, I gave a very detailed answer. And that answer was edited out. Every single fact that I discussed was edited out. The fact that Publix wasn't even the first pharmacy to get it, CVS and Walgreens had it. The fact that we had it obviously in hospitals and these other places. The fact that Publix was selected because they were the first pharmacy to raise their hand, that was taken out. The fact that when I went down and met with Mayor Kerner, Palm Beach was the one that calculated 90% of their seniors live within a mile and a half of a Publix, and that they cut out 90%. Because they knew that that would hurt their narrative. So everything they left on the cutting room floor was designed to take away all the evidence against their narrative. It was malicious what they did. There's a video going out now, it's got millions of views, shows the 60 Minutes clip, and then it shows the actual answer. And I can tell you, even people that may be on the other side of the aisle from me, when they look at that, they uniformly understand that was a smear, that was editing to try to further a narrative and to try to hide the facts. And we offered them on camera last week for Jared to go on, for Mayor Kerner. Now they say they've talked to him in the past. Yeah, Jared's not going to sit down in an interview a month ago or 2 weeks ago to dismiss a fake story. He's got better things to do. But when it was clear that they were hell-bent on doing this, said, all right, Jared will go on air. David Kerner will go on air. No, we don't want to do that. We don't want to do that because obviously that would have undercut their narrative. So the whole thing is a big lie. We know it was a big lie. CBS certainly knew it was a big lie, but that was their goal, was just simply to try to smear Florida, smear me, smear whoever they could in the process to try to manufacture it. I mean, they're based in New York. How many critical stories are they doing about the governor of New York? I've seen puff pieces. I haven't seen any critical looks at all their problems. But I want to focus on something that is probably somewhat overlooked. So the smear is a conspiracy charge, which is obviously BS. But the way they say is exclusive rights to distribute the vaccine in Palm Beach. So this was stated as a fact. That is absolutely false. The reporter knew it was false, but certainly they knew it was false by the time it went on air because I told them it was false and all they had to do was check the facts. So did Publix ever have an exclusive deal? Well, the fact is there was never a deal with the state of Florida and Publix for any of this. No contracts. The state of Florida never paid Publix 1 red cent for distributing it. It's just like when we would send vaccine to hospitals. You send it to Jackson in Miami, they get it, they distribute it. They can obviously charge Medicare or whatever, but the state wasn't giving Jackson any money, just as the state wasn't giving Publix any money. There was never a deal. There was never a contract. And I can tell you, if they were not doing a good job getting that vaccine in seniors' arms, and Jared saw that and came to me, we would have absolutely moved it to where someone was doing a good job, but they did do a very good job. So there was never a deal. There was also never exclusivity. This is something that I told them during that press conference, and they lied about it. They put that statement on the air knowing it was a lie. So for example, we had CVS and Walgreens doing long-term care facilities in Palm Beach County and in every county in Florida that has a facility, starting in December. So December, January into February, you have all those folks. We allocated probably hundreds of thousands of doses to CVS and Walgreens for this mission. The state also, with our strike teams, we did 100 long-term care facilities to start the first week because the pharmacies weren't ready. But, and that was Broward and Pinellas. But then as the pharmacies were doing it, we thought the pace needed to get a little bit better. So we had strike teams come on the back end with some of the ALFs and some of these other things. So there's no exclusive deal with Publix and Palm Beach. They were doing the long-term care, Walgreens and CVS, the whole time. That wasn't Publix. This is readily available information. You literally would make 10 minutes worth of phone calls and you would have been able to see that this had been going on December, January, February through other companies, CVS, Walgreens, also through the state strike teams. But they didn't want to tell you that. They wanted to lie. They wanted to say there was an exclusive arrangement in Palm Beach, and that is false. This is also the case. Palm Beach, they were one of the first counties to get vaccine doses at their county health department. And if you look, they got the same amount as Miami-Dade County, but I think as most of you know, Miami-Dade County is a lot bigger than Palm Beach County. So that is a pretty significant number of doses there to do 20,000 doses in Palm Beach County. So that was December, January, February, all that was continuing to go. Here's just December. Here's all the points where you see vaccines had been distributed to all these places. Obviously, the health department in West Palm Beach, people say West Palm Beach wasn't getting any. That's not true. That's another lie. You have all that. You have all these different health departments. You have hospitals like Jupiter Medical Center. You have all these different ones in Boca Raton, other parts of the county. This is just in December, all this is happening. Then we started doing these senior pods. The first senior community that we set up a pod in was Kings Point in Delray Beach, Palm Beach County. Publix didn't do that. There was no exclusive arrangement for Publix to do that. That was actually even before the new year started with Kings Point. Very successful. Tell you, I was there for that. Man, seniors, they were so thankful and so happy. And again, Jared and I could have just sat on our rump and said, hey, we'll just send it to the places and not. No, we were going, let's figure out how we can make a difference and save lives. Century Village, January. Century Village, West Palm. Again, you hear West Palm wasn't getting it? Give me a break. West Palm, January 3rd, 2021. And then even Huntington Point later on in March. Publix had nothing to do with it. So when they say there was an exclusive deal for Publix in Palm Beach, 60 Minutes is lying to you. They knew they were lying, and they kept on lying. You look at faith-based missions. Again, this isn't Publix going to African-American churches. You look at all the things starting in January, Tabernacle Missionary Baptist, Wells Recreation Center with the Greater Bethel, all these other ones. Obviously, we did synagogues. We did other different types of faith, primarily focusing on African-American communities. Publix wasn't doing that. If Publix had the exclusive rights to distribute vaccine in Palm Beach, how are those African-American church populations being vaccinated? They're being vaccinated because people like Jared were getting the job done. Florida was showing leadership. What Jared did with the African-American churches was the first in the country to do that. Again, that wasn't Publix. Where's the exclusive deal? The exclusive deal is a lie. They knew it was a lie, and yet they put it on the air. January 21, again, we're told that there's an exclusive rights for Publix to have this in Palm Beach County. Well, that's crazy. Are these all Publix subsidiaries? I mean, is it Jupiter Medical Center and Brevard Health Alliance? Are those all subsidiaries of Publix? Of course not. It was a lie to say Publix was the exclusive right, that there was a deal for exclusive rights. You had all these different areas that had vaccine. 26 locations in just these medical areas. And oh, by the way, you did have it in the county health department out in Belglade. And so the result was, by the beginning of February, we had been doing Publix in Palm Beach for probably, about 2 weeks at that point, would you say? So we've been doing Publix at 2 weeks, which was very helpful. But Palm Beach, they went, especially when we did that, we started really hitting the pedal on the metal. 146,000 seniors, really in a matter of about 4 weeks, where we were mainly in the fight on this with the 65 and up. So there was a lot of success. We had a lot of different points. And we wouldn't have been able to reach those numbers as quickly as we had if there was an exclusive deal with Publix. And so it was a lie to say there was an exclusive deal. They knew it was a lie, and they put it on anyways. Is this? Okay. So here's the thing. You get into February. State of Florida allocated the vaccine to 31 locations in addition to Publix throughout Palm Beach County. And that includes the site that Jared was involved with, John Davis, our lottery secretary. I personally not only approved, I told these guys to get it done. John and I went to Pahokee. We did it at the high school, and we made that a permanent site. There was a need, and we fulfilled it. So 31 other locations having nothing to do with Publix. How does Publix have an exclusive deal? Of course they don't. That's a lie. March, even more locations, 37 locations. So when does this exclusive clause kick in? I mean, can someone explain to me how this was ever an exclusive thing? Or is this just something you're fabricating out of whole cloth? I think we all know the answer to that. This is something that's being fabricated out of whole cloth. And then in April, of course, we're now 97 locations. And part of the reason is we get a lot more vaccine on a weekly basis than we were in December and than we were in January. But the bottom line is to suggest, or to not suggest, to assert as a matter of fact that Publix was rewarded with exclusive rights in Palm Beach County is something that even the dimmest bulb in the New York corporate media constellation would have been able to realize that was false. You literally take 10 minutes to make a few phone calls. 60 Minutes was in Florida for 3 months trying to dig up dirt. And Jared and I were talking about it. It's like, okay, they wanted to smear Florida. They wanted to smear our vaccination effort. They obviously wanted to smear me. They spent 3 months, and the best they could come up with is a half-baked conspiracy theory that literally is readily debunked by talking to like 2 people. So I think that means we probably did a pretty good job, because if we had done a really bad job, they would have actually had facts that they could have relied on to try to do the hit piece. So no exclusivity. That was obvious. I said it in my press conference. They edited it out, and they refused to put it on the air, but they kept the lie on the air. That's intentional. That is malicious. And I think we all know that. Here's a Palm Beach Post even has this. January 16th, hundreds line up for COVID vaccines in West Palm Beach. And again, this is sponsored by Jared's agency, Tabernacle Baptist Church in West Palm Beach, trying to get it, particularly with African American church members. And on this, you hear about like exclusive access. We go to the pastors, we say, you provide us your folks. Give us your congregation, tell us how many you can get. You get 500, we'll bring 500 doses. And so they roster these folks, and then we go in and do it. It's not because we're trying to give them any more, cut the line or not. It's because we believe that getting into communities makes sense. We believe that these pastors are trusted. We think that makes a big difference. Oh, by the way, more vaccines, Palm County, Tabernacle Baptist Church. Who's that? Oh, I think, is that the guy that was saying that we weren't doing anything with any of the African American communities? He's there taking credit for it. You know why? He wanted to do it, and so Jared made it happen. So there we are there, and this is January 16th. That was the weekend after I had met with Mayor Kerner in Palm Beach County about figuring out strategies, how we could do, and then eventually, obviously, we decided to expand the retail footprint. So that was happening right as Publix came online. You had this happening. Why didn't 60 Minutes tell you that? We told them that. We provided them all the information prior to this piece airing about all the different sites that we had done, about different things we've done, not just in Palm Beach, but throughout the entire state of Florida. We gave them that information, and just like they edited me out in my press conference, they edited out that information from their piece. You know why they did that? Because the piece was preordained before they even stepped foot in the state of Florida. They knew what they were trying to do. The facts did not matter, and they were hell-bent on trying to launch a smear piece against me and against the state of Florida and against again, one of our most respected companies and brands, Publix. So that is what we're dealing with here. And I think, obviously, there's a big lie that there was some type of conspiracy with Publix. But just this claim that there was exclusive rights in Palm Beach County is readily debunked. It's obvious. It's obvious that that is false. It is obvious that that's a manufactured conspiracy theory designed to fit a partisan political narrative. And so that's just the reality of this. There's other stuff. I'm going through some of the transcript or whatever. There's other stuff in there that's a total disaster as well that obviously was not true. But you know, why do you edit me out? I'm giving you the information. No one said anything I said in that press conference isn't accurate. I mean, CVS and Walgreens were doing it. We did meet with Kerner. We had all these different things going on, and yet they chose to edit that out. And you know, this is one of the biggest face plants of corporate media. But I do think we're in a situation where, you know, corporate media thinks they can do whatever the hell they want. They think they can smear whoever they want, and they think they can just move on to the next target. And that's bad for our country. They divide this country on purpose with their partisanship and their fake narratives without worrying about the facts. They came and tried to divide Florida, but fortunately, we have people across the aisle who've been working together this whole time who say, you know what, that's bunk. You know what, you're wrong. They actually told them that before they aired the piece, but they still went ahead and did it. So we're proud of what we did. I can tell you, I talk with other governors. I mean, they would love to see some of the stuff Jared has done or that we've been able to do with retailers in some of those states. People have followed what Florida has done, not just with retailers, but with African-American churches, with pods, with all these different things that we've done. And again, the goal is get as many shots into seniors' arms as possible. Of course, now in recent weeks, we've been able to expand it. Where now every adult is eligible for the COVID vaccine. No one would have thought by the beginning of April that that would have been the case, and it was only the case because we used all the tools at our disposal, including our retail pharmacies. Jared was very responsive as folks were asking for support, if there was any way we could do it. In fact, he would say yes, and then his staff would have to scramble. I mean, we showed up at sites where they have 24 hours notice. I mean, and these guys are showing up, at Sun City Center and Hillsborough, at some of the other churches. I mean, it really, really was an impressive effort. And so I just regret that because you have, a New York corporate media who, by the way, if you're going to hit somebody in Florida, Publix is probably not the best brand to go after. People kind of like Publix, and it just shows you they clearly have no idea what's going on in Florida. They clearly don't understand the state. But I really believe that if they didn't have the partisan agenda, then they would have recognized the good work that so many other folks have done throughout this whole vaccine drive. We got more folks that need it, obviously. We're going to continue to work very hard, but it's been a lot of work, but there's been a lot of satisfaction, particularly for our seniors. And I can say without question, by putting seniors first, by having a very diverse approach in terms of the various distribution mechanisms, we save lives. We absolutely save lives. We done good. I don't need any plaudits from corporate media, but if they're going to come down here and smear our efforts or smear me or smear great companies in my state, I'm going to hit them back right between the eyes. Jared?
Governor, thank you. And so, I'll say this for, the fifth or sixth time since the first time the Publix narrative got printed in the newspaper, this pay-to-play narrative. So the reason why I know that to be false is because the decision to use Publix was made in my office in the EOC. That was the recommendation that was developed. It was developed with 10 people in the room in coordination with folks from my office and the Department of Health. We had already been working with CVS and Walgreens in the long-term care program. They were already vaccinating. We were already working with them. There are many articles about that. That's not breaking news. In fact, that program also was running a little bit slow, right? The state had to step in and help out. And so that relationship had existed all the way back to December. We were working with the federal government because the federal government had a federal pharmacy program. The states got to choose who the federal pharmacy partners were. The federal government didn't pick. We got to choose. We had picked Walmart, Publix, and Winn-Dixie. But the federal government delayed that program by 30 days, probably having to do with vaccine supply. So we needed to open up more locations. We needed to open up more locations faster. Setting up these outdoor drive-through locations takes a lot of time and a lot of logistics. And so we came up with the idea of, well, why can't we turn on the retail program ourselves? And so my first choice was Walmart. I called Walmart first and said, listen, we have some doses. We want to pilot this. We want to pilot it specifically in areas that not just have hesitancy, but where we're seeing shots in arms slowing down. And so we picked some rural areas, we talked about some urban areas, and Walmart said, great, we'd love to partner with you, but we can't start for 21 days. And I said to Walmart, fantastic, we'll get back in touch with you, keep us up to date with the progress. I then got on the phone with Publix. By the way, this was all done on the speakerphone with 7, 8 people in the room. And I said, when can you start? 72 hours. That's it. That's the whole story. There's nothing else. And yet, the narrative that has been out there for weeks and weeks and weeks, this is not a new thing that 60 Minutes ran with, and that we've been pushing back. I talked to 60 Minutes. They were very nice. We talked for a long period of time. But I told them that this Publix narrative was malarkey, and they still went with it. And so, the unfortunate thing is that, my job is really about operations, right? My job is to try to get shots in arms as fast as possible. But I got to be honest, in the last year, this is not the first time that I've seen this stuff where it's verifiably false and yet it's printed and our rebuttal has to be in the last paragraph with some salacious headline because the narrative still wants to be told. So
At least that's better than cutting out the explanation from a press conference entirely. So
true.
Baby steps, I guess.
True. So let's talk about some of the things the division has done at the governor's direction. So we have partnered with 250 churches in the state. We have done 88,000 doses of the vaccine. We've partnered with African-American churches, Hispanic churches. We've partnered with mosques, with temples. We've done interfaith vaccine events. We've partnered with the Asian American community, the Vietnamese community. In fact, just recently we did the first LGBTQ church in the state. We've done 12,000 doses now with homebound seniors. We have vaccinated 165,000 people at long-term care facilities, assisted living facilities, nursing homes, HUD Section 202 housing, independent living facilities, APD group homes, adult daycares, residential treatment centers. We gave 9,000 doses to the AIDS Foundation. We did 50,000 doses to the 188 federally qualified health centers. We partnered with a school for the deaf and the blind to make sure that they were vaccinated. We've gone to 116 mobile home parks and set up pods in those mobile home parks and vaccinated 15,000 people. We've done 21,000 doses in HUD housing. We have 14 mobile buses running around the state, making sure that we're vaccinating farm workers, people in meatpacking plants. We're setting up those buses in socially vulnerable areas to make sure that people can get the vaccine. We have a site in Immokalee that has done 1,200 doses. We were the first state in the nation to work with FEMA on the federal sites, but say to FEMA, we want those sites to be walk-up. We were the first state in the nation to suggest that they should be walk-up, no appointment. Why did we do that? We did that because we were aware of the digital divide in the minority community. And so there were no appointments needed. We took the computers out. And the second thing we suggested to FEMA, and we were the first state in the nation to do so, was you can't just have one site in an area. You have to have spokes. You have to go deeper into the community. So we were the first state in the nation to have these separate sites deeper in what they call the social vulnerable index, which is areas that obviously need additional assistance to get the vaccine. At these federal sites, in state partnership with these hubs, we've done 500,000 doses in those communities. And because we see the vaccine hesitancy in the minority community, we decided to be one of the first in the nation to go door to door. And so we have knocked on 280,000 doors in underserved communities. We've partnered with AmeriCorps. We've partnered with Souls to the Polls. And so we're going to continue to do this stuff. We're going to continue to expand. We got 16 sites right now in minority communities. We partnered with HBCUs. We're going to continue to do more. But to be quite honest, I need your help, the folks in this room, the folks watching. I need the media's help to help us get people vaccinated rather than dividing us for retweets and likes on stories that, look salacious. You might not win the Pulitzer helping us get vaccinated, but I need you to help people get vaccinated. Help me get people in the minority community vaccinated. So we'll work with anybody. We have from day one. If there are ideas on what more we can be doing or where we need to go, reach out to my office, because this is so important. This is our opportunity to stop the spread in the state. Governor, I really appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, I got to run to the next one. Jared, if you want to answer some questions, go ahead. Thanks.
Governor, should they be fired? The people involved with that story? Governor, when are you going to be vaccinated?
I think the director has to run. If you want to put your camera down,
Hey, Jared, are you interested?
Governor Ron DeSantis here making a very hasty exit after responding to the 60 Minutes report that aired this past Sunday. Read the very latest on WFLA.com and the WFLA app.
Great, just give me a few moments of silence. The next time you hear my voice, we'll be live, okay?
Okay, thank you.
Is there a problem opening this thing up? Or that speaker?
No, you'll be fine.
Locked in there?
You're fine. You're fine.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for standing by. Welcome to the LA County Sheriff Press Briefing regarding Tiger Woods. At this time, all participants are in a listen-only mode. Later, we will conduct a question and answer session, and instructions will be given at that time. If you should require assistance during the call, please press star, then 0. I would now like to turn the conference over to our host, Mr. Alex Villanueva, please go ahead.
Good morning, and thank you for joining us today. I am not Alex Villanueva. My name is John Satterfield. I'm the captain of Sheriff's Information Bureau. And today, our order of speakers will be Sheriff of Los Angeles County, Alex Villanueva, and the captain of Lomita Sheriff Station, James Powers. After they speak, we'll open it up for some questions. And then after all of that, the sheriff will transition to Spanish. Now, it's my honor to introduce Sheriff of Los Angeles County, Alex Villanueva.
Thank you, John. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Hall of Justice. This is the headquarters for the LA County Sheriff's Department. I made a promise 7 weeks ago to deliver information regarding this traffic collision involving Tiger Woods, and we're here to follow through on that promise and to share with you what we have learned regarding the collision that occurred on February 23rd in Rolling Hills Estates. And as I said at the day of the crash, we're thankful that that he survived this tragic collision. And I'd like to point out that Tiger Woods and his representatives have been very cooperative throughout this investigative process. And they've also provided us with the permission to share these findings with you. And for the record, under Section 20012 of the California Vehicle Code, the details of this report would remain confidential except for the involved parties. And this is true of the thousands of reports like this type we prepare every year throughout LA County. And no one is asking for any of those reports. And so this is treated no differently. The primary causal factor for this traffic collision was driving at a speed unsafe for the road conditions and the inability to negotiate the curve of the roadway. Estimated speeds at the first area of impact were 84 to 87 miles per hour, and the final estimated speed when the vehicle struck the tree was 75 miles per hour. There were no citations issued, and there are no signs of impairment. Now, I know there are some saying somehow he received a special or a preferential treatment any of some kind. That is absolutely false. There was no signs of impairment. Our primary concern, once we obviously at the scene of the collision, was his safety. And this is where you have to switch gears and make sure the person can survive and receives the medical care they need. And the fire department, paramedics, and that's why he was taken to a trauma center, because he obviously had a compound fracture to a leg and it was life-threatening injuries. So I know there's a lot of experts who claim they're drug recognition people said, oh, they should have drawn blood or done this or done that. And without the signs of impairment, we don't get to the point where we can actually author a search warrant and develop the probable cause to get that and execute that search warrant. So that did not happen, and that is not preferential treatment that would occur in any collision of this type based on these circumstances. And past history does not get you the elements you need to establish that probable cause. So I'll leave it at that. So now let me introduce Jim Powers, who's the captain of Lomita Sheriff Station.
Thank you, Sheriff. Thank you for having me here. Good morning. I'm here to discuss some of the details of the traffic collision that occurred on Tuesday, February 23rd of this year at approximately 7:12 in the morning on Hawthorne Boulevard in the city of Rolling Hills Estates involving Mr. Tiger Woods. I'd like to first introduce the deputies that were involved in this investigation. The first responding deputy is Deputy Carlos Gonzalez, who is to my right. Also Deputy Justin Smith, who is involved in the investigation after the fact, and the lead investigator, Detective Johann Schlogel, and then Sergeant Michael Downing from Traffic Services Bureau was involved in the evaluation of the data recorder of the vehicle. So upon our arrival, when Mr. Woods was involved in the collision, we responded. The vehicle was off the roadway and on its side. Mr. Woods was still inside the vehicle, his seatbelt was still worn, and the airbags had deployed. Mr. Wood appeared injured based on his appearance, and to prevent further injury, we waited for the paramedics to arrive to remove him from the vehicle and transport him to the hospital. There should be a slide of an aerial view. The median is depicted on the slide where the first area of impact was. There's a sign on the median that was the second area of impact, which is depicted by red dots. And then the third area of impact was on the west curb on the opposite side of Hawthorne Boulevard. And then the fourth area of impact was a tree west of the curb off the roadway, approximately 71 feet. And the blue dot that's indicated there is where the point of rest where the vehicle was. The impact of the vehicle when it hit the tree caused the vehicle to go airborne and do a somewhat pirouette, landing on its side. The follow-up investigation after the fact, as the sheriff indicated, there was no evidence of any impairment. There was no odor of alcohol. There were no open containers in the vehicle. And there were no narcotics or any evidence of medication in the vehicle or on his person. In this situation, the question was asked about, did we conduct field sobriety tests? Due to his injuries and the traumatic nature of his injuries, it would not be appropriate to do any type of field sobriety test. I will say that Tiger Woods and his management team have been in communication with us and have been throughout this entire event and have cooperated with any of our follow-up investigation questions and have responded to any of our questions and or concerns. The event data recorder was investigated, and on March 1st, we examined that data recorder after obtaining a search warrant that was signed by Judge Tony Cho of the Torrance Courthouse. There's an airbag control unit of the data recorder that showed information that we described as Event 1 and Event 2, and a combination of Event 1 and 2. Those events are areas of impact that was recorded by the recorder. The airbags were deployed, and each event shows a 5-second window, and the combination of both events show a 7-second window prior to the collision and up to the collision. The event data recorder showed speeds ranged from 82.02 miles per hour to 86.99 miles per hour and back down to 68.35 miles per hour. A second reading of this event data recorder is the acceleration pedal percentage, which is the pressure applied to the accelerator pedal during the collision. This measurement was at 99% at the area of impact, at all the area of impacts of the collision. The data recorder also recorded braking. There was no evidence of braking throughout this collision. It is speculated and believed that Tiger Woods inadvertently hit the accelerator instead of the brake pedal, causing that 99% rating on the accelerator pedal. Steering was also recorded, and it ranged from a -10 to 55. And this is on a 360-degree circular model, so it indicates that steering was made from the left and to the right, and it's believed that this could be from trying to correct from the impacts and also the impacts itself throughout the collision. Again, the estimated speeds of impact were 84 to 87 miles per hour at the median, 84, and then at the impact of the west curb line, it's estimated the speed was about 75 miles per hour. And these are estimated speeds based on the recordings from the data recorder. The cause of the collision is determined by the statements of the parties involved, any independent witnesses, facts of the scene and roadway, and the opinions of the traffic investigators. There were no independent witnesses of this collision, and the primary cause was driving at a speed unsafe for the road conditions and the inability to negotiate the curve of the roadway. No citation was issued, and there were no independent witnesses and no observations by a peace officer which would support the issuance of a citation. And that's all I have, and if you have any questions, we welcome them.
So do you want to answer, or does the sheriff want to ask first? Are you good with him?
That's fine.
Captain, thank you, Elizabeth. Captain, was there any evidence of distracted driving? I mean, did you check his phone for any texting or anything like that?
We did not check his phone for texting, and there was really no need to do that. And so there was no other evidence. The only associated factor, well, there's two factors: the speed and the failing to maintain the straight course of the curvature of the roadway. That's it. There's nothing from the cell phone to indicate any type of distracted driving.
So there was no texting or phone calls or anything around that time?
Not to our knowledge.
What about blood work? And there was a lot made about being able to draw blood at the scene, which I know is preposterous, but the notion that you did have access to blood work at the hospital, did you seek a warrant for that at all?
We did not seek a warrant because there was no indication for us to do so. And so based on all the facts, there was no evidence of any impairment or intoxication. And so in order to obtain a search warrant, you have to have probable cause to be able to articulate that. And that did not exist.
So no DRE was ever even dispatched?
We have our investigators out there, and they are qualified DREs. And so those questions were asked, and they're all indicated and documented in the report.
Thank you, sir.
Captain, can you explain this inadvertently hitting the accelerator? Can you explain that one more time?
It's believed that when you panic or you have some sort of a sudden interruption while you're driving, your initial impact is to, or your initial thought is to hit the brake, and it's believed that he may have done that, but hit the accelerator and didn't hit the brake. We don't know that. He doesn't have any recollection of the incident, and like I said, that's a speculation. There's zero braking throughout that recording of the data recorder, and it's 99% acceleration on the pedal.
Captain, wouldn't it seem to be logical to check to see if Tiger Woods was perhaps distracted using his cell phone or texting before the accident?
Well, I mean, it's not going to change anything. The cause of the collision was the speed and the inability to maintain the roadway. And so all it would have been is an associated factor, which wouldn't cause the collision. And our goal is to find out what the primary cause of this collision was, and that's it.
Did you ask him if he was texting or on the phone before the accident?
We don't have that knowledge.
Captain, considering the fact that Woods was not recalling at all the fact that he had been driving, had no recollection of it, is that not justification for doing a DRE at a later time or potentially blood alcohol test?
No, but my investigators, as they interviewed him at the scene and at the hospital, the questions were asked, and there was nothing to indicate any type of intoxication. He did answer those questions. He did not. He stated he didn't drink. He didn't. There's nothing. He's not. He wasn't taking any medication. So those questions were asked and answered.
And was there any reason for the excessive speed? Did he justify that at all?
At this time, we're going to open it up to the phones.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, if you have a question on the phone lines, please press 1, then 0 on your telephone keypad.
Captain, this yellow line, is that an accurate depiction of the
And our
steering
first
to
question
ever
comes
veer
from
away
Craig Bickner
That's an estimate.
with KNX News Radio. Please go ahead.
Hi, good morning. Thank you for taking the call. I want to know, based on this vehicle and the way it's configured, it did have some ability for autonomous driving or autonomous capabilities. Do we know if any of those were in use at the time of this collision or before?
We do not know that answer to that question, and we did not retrieve any information like that from the data recorder.
Captain, I think that car's equipped with cameras too. Do you know if they were rolling on this thing?
Which camera, sir?
I believe that car can be equipped with cameras, like a dash cam. Do you know?
I don't believe that car had any cameras equipped.
Captain, did Woods give any reason for the excessive use of speed?
No, he has no recollection of that collision, so he's not even aware of the speed until it was presented in this case.
Captain, how would you describe that speed for that situation?
It's unsafe for the conditions, just like the vehicle code reads. The speed limit posted is 45 miles per hour, and he was driving in excess of that, and it caused the collision, so it's unsafe.
Do you know
Can you
how
explain
long
why
he was
there's not a
traveling
sec-
at that high rate of speed before the collision?
No, I do not. All I know is a 7-second window that was recovered from the recorder.
Can you explain why there's not a citation if he was driving at an unsafe speed?
Part of it was because of the circumstances that he endured throughout the collision, and the fact that in order to issue a citation, it usually you have to have something to indicate an independent witness or an observation by a peace officer. And so I can't just inadvertently go out and write tickets. And I mean, you can do it, but it would be kind of, I don't want to say a waste of time, but a lot of the courts will dismiss it because it wasn't observed by a peace officer.
Captain, had somebody else been injured in this crash, how different would this investigation be? What kind of questions would you have wanted answers to that you didn't look for now?
Well, if there was a significant injury or a fatality, then we definitely would have investigated it further.
Do you think you asked enough questions and got enough answers from Tiger Woods?
Absolutely.
Captain, did he try and correct his steering at all, or was it basically straight off the road like this?
There's indication of steering, whereas I gave the examples of the steering. So there was steering in the vehicle at the areas of impact, and it's unsure if it was him trying to correct the situation or if it was the impact of the vehicle at the areas of impact that caused that by the movement of the vehicle.
The first impact is what you.
I'm sorry?
He drove it. The first impact, he drove right into it. He didn't correct it all.
It's a raised median, so there was impact, and it did have an impact on the vehicle. Yes.
Captain, can you tell us a little bit about your conversations with Tiger Woods in the moments that led up to the accident? What he remembers, what he doesn't recall?
I can, in what I've reviewed in this situation, he is in a state of shock at the onset of that collision. He was awake. We helped him sit up a little bit, and then we tried to extract him from the vehicle by breaking the sunroof, and it wouldn't break. And so we waited for the fire department. So he was, I don't want to use the word alert, but he was kind of dazed and confused, being in a state of shock. And then he was interviewed at the hospital as well, and he was coherent. His speech was normal, and there are interviews of him at the hospital where he's answering questions in the emergency room.
My question is leading up to the car accident, what he remembers doing moments before the car accident. What did he say he remembered doing before the crash?
I don't have the answer to that question.
I assume those questions were asked if he was distracted.
Well, I know that I know that there was allegations of an incident that occurred prior to the collision, which I reviewed video footage, and he was. I watched him on video walk out to his car, put his personal belongings in his car, and drive off the property, and he was driving very normal, very slow. As he began driving, to the point where it didn't appear that he even hit the accelerator. He took his foot off the brake and allowed the car to roll away. He made complete stops at 2 stop signs and stopped for a traffic signal before entering the highway. And so there's no evidence of any increased speed or rush behavior.
I guess leading up to the crash, though, was Tiger Woods late to an appointment? Was he on his cell phone? What did he tell you about the moments leading up to the crash, why he may have been traveling at that speed?
I don't believe he recalls that. The only statement I recall seeing in the report is that he had a long day the day prior.
We can take another question from a caller.
Thank you. Our next question on the phone comes from Brendan Geoffrion with TMZ. Please go ahead.
Hi, Sheriff. The sheriff said the day after the accident, no crime was committed. This is speeding and reckless driving that we're talking about. So how did you arrive at the conclusion that there was no crime?
Well, speeding is an infraction, and it's not criminal in nature like a misdemeanor or a felony, and there's no evidence of reckless driving. So that statement was never made.
Another question is, if Tiger was driving 85 to 87 miles an hour in a 45 zone, why no ticket for reckless driving or speeding?
Because reckless driving, you have to have multiple violations in conjunction with one another, like multiple unsafe lane changes, passing vehicles in an unsafe manner, kind of like road rage stuff, and that did not exist here. Therefore, reckless driving is not appropriate. And the speeding, there was no independent witnesses regarding the speeding, and it wasn't observed by a peace officer, so no citation was issued.
Captain, how
Last
often
question
is that
for
the
you.
case?
In your opinion, did Tiger make a conscious effort to avoid the accident?
We don't know that.
Captain, how often is that the case? Woods walked away without the citation. When you consider other drivers and crashes similar to this, how often is that the case, that they are not cited later because of the excessive speed?
Each case is decided on an individual basis, case by case basis, and so in situations like this, the decision was made not to issue a citation. That's it.
And why was that decision made in this case?
Well, as I stated, there was no independent witness to support that saw the violation, and there's no deputy sheriffs or peace officers that witnessed the violation.
Let me add to that real quick. The decision not to issue a citation would be the exact same thing for anyone in this room who went through the same situation, a solo traffic collision. There's no witness. It's an infraction only, and we're not going to issue a citation on an infraction not committed in a peace officer's presence or independent witnesses, period. That would apply to everybody. So any inference that somehow is special is false.
Despite the evidence that you have on the event data recorder?
The event data recorder, that tells us physically what happened, but we need a human being to witness it.
There was quite a bit of discussion after this accident about this particular stretch of roadway.
Yes.
Have there been adjustments made on the roadway? And how much of this accident do you blame on the roadway versus the driver?
Well, this stretch of particular roadway, I believe we spoke a few weeks ago that it had, I think, was it 13 or 14? 14 traffic collisions. If you're going like a quarter mile prior to a quarter mile after that stretch of roadway in particular. So it is hazardous. It encouraged it just by the design is straight away going downhill into a curve. People are approaching it with way too much speed for the conditions of the road. This has been brought to the attention to the supervisor, Janice Hahn, is in her district, and they are trying to address that with some way of traffic control to slow down the speed.
How much do you blame that particular roadway for this crash versus the driver?
Well, it's the driver bears the responsibility regardless of the roadway, as long as the roadway is designed with the basics. However, this stretch of roadway in particular has a little bit more than average share of collisions, so they need to rethink how this is designed and what we can do to slow down the traffic.
Sheriff, if Tiger Woods had been involved in another vehicle, if he had injured somebody, would he be facing some pretty serious criminal charges?
On the same conditions, no. If there was an issue of an impairment or reckless driving, and then by extension there's a victim from another vehicle, then there would be a consideration. But we don't have either reckless driving, we don't have any evidence of impairment, so no, that would not apply.
But it also seems as though you guys didn't apply for a search warrant to see if you were texting or distracted.
To apply for a search warrant, you have to have probable cause. And to get probable cause, you need to have a building blocks of elements to indicate that someone potentially committed a crime. And that's higher than just a reasonable suspicion. And we do not have those building blocks to get to a probable cause. So therefore, you cannot approach a judge with a search warrant just because, well, we knew he had trouble in the past or something, therefore, can you sign this? And the judge is going to say, get out of here.
All right, at this time, it's going to transition to Spanish.
Will you be able to answer questions non-crash related while you're
Sure.
here? Thank you.
All right, para español, como hice una promesa cuando ocurrió ese incidente con el golfista Tiger Woods, que ese accidente ocurrió el 23 de febrero en la ciudad de Rolling Hills Estate, y gracias a Dios sobrevivió el accidente, que fue muy violento, y tenemos los resultados de esta investigación. La primera causa que por lo que este accidente ocurrió fue la velocidad demasiado alta para las condiciones de este estrecho del camino, del Boulevard de Hawthorne. Y la segunda es el que iba manejando Tiger Woods no pudo manejar la curva después de una recta. La combinación de esos dos factores fue el resultado de ese accidente y la causa del accidente. Se estima que su velocidad era entre 84 y 87 millas por hora al momento del impacto con el centro de la calle. Y cuando chocó con el árbol al otro lado de la calle, al lado oeste de la calle, andaba a 75 millas por hora. Y no fue citado por alguna infracción del Código de Vehículos de California por no haber testigo presente, y no hay evidencia de que estaba manejando bajo los efectos del alcohol o de alguna droga, y no hay causa para obtener una orden de búsqueda para información para, por ejemplo, de análisis de la sangre, cosas así. Y esos son los resultados, y cualquier sugerencia de gente que se llaman expertos de que recibió algún tratamiento preferido por ser célebre son totalmente falsos. Nosotros hacemos miles de estos reportes cada año, y el Código de Vehículos de California, la sección 2012 o 20012, dice que solamente los que son participantes de un accidente automovilístico son los que pueden recibir el reporte, nadie más. Y entonces fue por la cooperación de Tiger Woods, y él dejó salir a la luz pública el accidente, que podemos hablar de esta manera. ¿Alguna pregunta en español?
¿Ustedes verificaron el celular para saber si Tiger Woods iba manejando y enviando textos al momento del accidente?
Para obtener los datos del teléfono celular se necesita también una orden de búsqueda. No tenemos los elementos para establecer esa razón para tener esa orden de búsqueda. Pero según él, no lo andaba haciendo.
Señor Villanueva.
Sí.
Gracias. ¿Se le dio trato preferencial en este caso a Tiger Woods?
No, en ningún momento. Nuestra primera preocupación es sus heridas eran muy serias de vida o muerte y queríamos rescatarlo, salvarle la vida y salvarle la pierna, y los paramédicos, los bomberos lo llevaron inmediatamente a un salón de emergencia de la primera categoría. Ellos pasaron a varios hospitales y fueron al Hospital General, was it Harvard? Right? Harvard General? Sí, ahí donde tiene un centro de trauma.
Pero en un caso como este, señor Villanueva, ¿no es normal de que se le haga una prueba sobre alcohol o sobre drogas cuando hay un accidente de esta magnitud?
No, tiene que haber, para hacer eso, tiene que haber elementos que dicen que había una embriaguez de alguna forma. Si están los elementos, no podemos hacer esa prueba. Esas pruebas son muy intrusivas y se requiere por la cuarta enmienda de la Constitución de los Estados Unidos, la Carta de Derechos, se requiere tener causa probable para entonces buscar esa orden de búsqueda que nos permite obtener análisis de sangre, los datos de los teléfonos celulares, por ejemplo. Sin tener esos elementos para causa probable, no se permite. Eso es la Constitución, y esa Constitución, esos derechos aplican ya sea a Tiger Woods como a cualquier persona aquí, como a cualquier persona en la calle.
Si iba a alta velocidad, entonces, ¿por qué no recibió una multa, señor Villanueva?
Porque cuando se da una multa tiene que ser observado por un oficial de la ley o orden. No puede ocurrir remotamente y después lo hacemos. Tenemos que observarlo. Y porque es una infracción, no es un crimen menor o delito grave. Infracciones, tenemos que estar presentes. Okay. I think.
Yes, thank you, Sheriff. I was watching a town hall meeting the other day with Supervisor Holly Mitchell, in which she referred to the leaders of the DA's Association, Sheriff's Association, and law enforcement in LA County as white supremacists. I just wanted to know if you had a comment on that.
Well, those comments, I don't expect them from a responsible elected official in Los Angeles County or anywhere in this nation. It's reprehensible, irresponsible, and I think that supervisor owes an apology to an awful lot of people who dedicate their lives to preserving public safety, the public peace, and put their lives on the line, and to, paint them with a broad brush of white supremacists is just totally uncalled for. It's unprofessional.
Do you suppose these kinds of comments coming from elected officials will drive some sort of public sentiment?
Well, it does. It drives a narrative for people that already have an animus towards law enforcement, which makes the job of deputies and police officers out there contacting the people that don't want to go to jail to begin with when they're in the act of committing a violent crime. Now they have more. They somehow feel that now they have a supervisor backing their play that they can resist being arrested, even though they're committing a crime. So this does not help officer safety out there in the field. And all it does is it continues a spiral of conflict between community members and law enforcement. It does not serve the public's interest at all.
Over Easter weekend, there were 11 homicides in Los Angeles County. That's probably one of the highest on an Easter weekend. I wonder if you had any thoughts on that.
Well, the crime continues to spiral out of control, particularly violent crime, and our homeless situation is spiraling out of control. I need supervisors to start focusing on violent crime and our homeless situation. Those are the twin crises that is important to every single resident of Los Angeles County. And, to take cheap shots at law enforcement for what you perceive to be your political gain does not solve either of those two problems. So our job, my job, is to focus on violent crime and the homeless situation. And I expect everyone else to do the same, from City Hall, Board of Supervisors, Governor's Office. We need to get busy now because the problems are real, and just trying to fan the flames of political divisions does not solve any of these problems.
Last question.
Violent crime is up in Los Angeles County?
Homicides alone, we measured them on Monday, 152%, which under ordinary times is people would say, oh my God, that's extraordinary. It's a crisis. It is a crisis. Unfortunately, the times we live today, there's people that think, so what? Who cares? They still have their agenda, and they're just going to ignore people dying left and right around them. We're not going to ignore that.
Do you have a number to tie to that? I'm sorry, do you have a number to tie to that 152%?
I do have the number.
We can provide it for you.
Yes, I just saw the chart on Monday, and it actually went up from 133% to 152%, and that's prior to calculating this weekend.
Just one last,
Thank you, Sheriff.
one last question on the crash. I'm curious about Tiger Woods, the airbags that went off. Do we know if the airbags went off when he hit the center divide, or when it? Because I know there was multiple airbags, or did they go off after he hit the tree?
Well, typically the airbags depend on what type of sensor they have. There's sensors that are bumper, and they're impact generated, and those make everything go off. There are other ones that are a little higher end that they sense a loss of inertia, and then they deploy. So I don't know if you know which type of
It's believed at the sidewalk in the tree.
sidewalk in the tree. All right, so there you go.
So they went off
When they hit the sidewalk in the tree.
So at different times? they
Yes.
went off.
Final question will be from our last caller.
Thank you. That will come from the line of Haley Winslow with Fox LA. Please go ahead.
Hey, Sheriff, thank you so much. I'm just wondering about the body cam footage from the deputies who responded to Tiger's crash. Will that be released?
Are we going to release that? I believe not. And I think at that point, all it's going to show is a badly injured person. They have their privacy issues. That we'll respect that.
Right.
Can you leave the graphics up?
Thank you.
Yes, we'll leave the graphics up.
Thank you,
All right.
Sheriff.
All right. Thank you.
All right, thank you. That concludes the press conference. Have a great day.